we can take our AI and have him scrub load boards and make calls and have a driver call in, driver manager that they can call in, find out if they're getting paid, find out if their wire got done, find out, if they need money on their fuel card, everything drivers call, I had a trucking company, I had logistic trucking, and we'd have drivers on hold and they were last ones to get picked up on the call. It's like, well, they're just driving. Well, they need help. They don't want to sit on hold for 12, 15 minutes waiting for the dispatcher or driver manager to pick up and find out if their wire is going out today so their wife can pay their bills. I mean, it's super busy. So like, if you can just you can just have a driver management AI and driver interactive AI that could work with drivers. Like I think that just that step alone is big because they just want information and they're left on hold. And
welcome into another episode of Everything is Logistics, a podcast for the thinkers in freight. I am your host, Blythe Brumleve, and we are proudly presented by SPI Logistics. And we've got another incredible episode for y'all today. And we've got David Bell. He is the co-founder and CEO of Cloneops. And we're going to be talking about how logistics veterans can start implementing or start thinking about implementing AI into their companies. And so, David, I just wanted to say, I just got done listening to the entire conversation between you and Andrew Silver on the Freight Pod, and it's such a great conversation hearing all of those stories, especially from your earlier days. I think for folks who may not know, you used to sell like the big gray cell phones inside of cars. You used to or help install car stereos. You started up or worked with a LTL logistics company before you sold that. You started Lean Solutions. I mean, you've done so many incredible things in and around sales, in and around just business and entrepreneurship. And I'm curious as to why you wanted to now get back into the game and start up Cloneops.
Well, I mean, like you said, again, everything is logistics. I think everything comes back to that, and it's my wheelhouse. It's where I've spent my last 30 years and my network. And I had an opportunity where this AI craze seemed like it was going to take off, and I missed the .com because I was buried in logistics. I missed the Bitcoin because I was buried in logistics and Lean, and so now I wasn't buried in anything anymore. I'm kind of just a useless advisor at Lean, doing nothing while everybody else does the work. So I said, let me let me go do something again. I was a little bit bored, and I said, this is super interesting to me, and I think it's going to revolutionize logistics, and just like Nearshoring did, and I did it with Nearshoring, I thought it would be cool to maybe try to do it again and see if I could do it with AI. And I think AI is going to revolutionize logistics and a lot of other industries, especially high phone call, high volume, high email volume, high phone call volume tasks and businesses. AI is a game changer.
Now, I think it's one thing to be interested in AI and, think of ways that you could start using it yourself and implementing it yourself. But I'm curious as to what that first aha moment was for you to say, this could actually be a real business.
I mean, when I heard a voice selling some online stuff and taking credit cards. And I basically, I listened to it and I was like, wow, this sounds pretty much as good as, anybody. And it actually sounds better when you talk to people like with thick accents in call centers. Like, it's very frustrating and having to repeat, I have a simple personal email and it's my initials basically. And every time I give it to somebody over the phone, I got to repeat it like 5 times. And it's like, so I'm like, and AI just gets it immediately. Like, you say it once, it has it. So I just thought that it's going to really put a dent in some of the, like the Indian, the Philippines call centers where the accents are there and it's more articulate. And then when you change it like for like different languages we can convert to 16 different languages in the middle of a conversation. So I think that's really good for logistics too, because it's such a diverse group of drivers and trucking companies and so many different languages. When you're tracking a truck, if you can go from speaking English to speaking Creole or Polish or Serbian or Russian or Mandarin, Korean, like you could switch to those languages. I think you get a much better response from dispatchers and from drivers. Just they can communicate, because I speak a little bit of Spanish, but if somebody speaks to me in Spanish, it's a little bit intimidating. You don't know what they're saying. You don't want to act like you don't know what they're saying, and So I just think there's so many cool features to it. And I think it's going to get better and better and better, and it's going to be perfected. It's one of those things that's not going to be a flash in the pan where it's big and then nobody talks about it, like RPA or something like that. I think this is something that's here. It's not going anywhere, and it's going to get better and better. And eventually you're going to have an AI that just comes in. Like, I don't know if you get in your car, I get in my car and my iPhone tells me where I'm going. I'm like, how does it know where I'm going? It's because it has a pattern. I think what's going to happen is what we're building is an AI that every day you're going to come in, you're going to get on your computer and on our dashboard, and you're going to work and do it. And eventually it's going to do that work for you. It's going to come in, it's going to track your trucks. It's going to read your emails. It's basically, you're going to turn your AI on and wake it up, and it's going to do all this work for you while you watch it work. And then you're going to jump in and handle the stuff that needs to be handled. And I think that's where it's going to evolve to. And so that's why I got excited about it. It's pretty cool.
What stood out the most to me from what you were just saying, because when I worked at a brokerage, we had one girl that could speak Russian, and anytime we had a driver call in and Ukrainian or Russian, any of those different dialects, we had to stop everything we were doing, go get her, have her come and be that translator, and she was really like the go-to. And then we had to do that for Spanish speaking drivers as well, and that to me just opens up having the ability to be able to understand a driver that's calling in, get them to the answer as quick as possible, I think is one of the bigger selling advantages. And when we connected at Manifest, you mentioned that one of the bots that you are creating with Cloneops, or one of the voice agents that you're creating, it will be able to help truckers as well, which I think is kind of lost in a lot of these discussions about brokers being able to use these different models. But on the trucker side of things, I thought that was really interesting, and it resonated with my audience, with truckers having access to this technology too. Can you speak a little bit more on maybe the trucker side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at like trucking companies, especially the small to mid-size, somebody with 5 to 50 trucks, they're one-man bands, one-woman bands. They're doing everything themselves. They got a couple dispatchers. I mean, one person can run 30 trucks, so you don't need 5 people in office to run 30 trucks. So I think that when you target those, if we can take our AI and have them scrub load boards and make calls, and have a driver call in, driver manager that they can call in, find out if they're getting paid, find out if their wire got done, find out maybe money on their fuel card, everything drivers call. I had a trucking company, I logistic trucking, and we'd have drivers on hold, and they were last ones to get picked up on the call. It's like, well, they're just driving. Well, they need help. They don't want to sit on hold for 12, 15 minutes waiting for the dispatcher or driver manager to pick up and find out if their wire is going out today so their wife can pay their bills. I mean, it's critical to them because they want to make sure the money's coming in and getting paid, but somebody's leaving them on hold because it's Friday and it's so busy they can't take the call. And if anybody knows freight, on Thursdays and Fridays, 60% of the freight probably moves on Fridays. So like, it's super busy. So like, if you can just you can just have a driver management AI and driver interactive AI that could work with drivers. I think that just that step alone is big, because they just want information and they're left on hold. And I think we talked about it at Manifest, like drivers during COVID were as most important as doctors, and now they're nobody again. And it's just crazy how we don't have a sense of how important truck drivers are.
Yeah, I think that they're definitely lost in a lot of the technology conversations, where they're almost like a victim of, increasing privacy regulations and things like that. And now this feels like a tool that they could use and use to their advantage. Now back over to, just sort of building out Cloneops. I'm curious, with your previous companies that you've built out, especially when it comes to lean solutions, you're building up to thousands of employees. Do you think that is the same approach you're taking with Cloneops, or do you see it as more empowering one person to do maybe 5 to 10 different roles or jobs?
So, I mean, when I was building and thinking about this, the last thing I wanted to think about is AI replacing the 10,000 people we have at Lean. I'm still a shareholder. The company's an amazing company. It's does great things for the people of Latin America, the employees. So the last thing I want to do is do anything to eliminate those jobs or hurt those people. And over time, AI is probably going to put a dent in people all over the world, here, everywhere. It's just going to do it. But what I set out to build is a 1 to 3 year plan to make them way more productive. One of the biggest challenges we had at Lean when I was starting Lean is comparing, okay, if I'm paying somebody $50,000 here and I'm paying $30,000 to Lean, I need like more than 20,000 of value, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. If I only get 5,000 of value, it's not worth the aggravation of having somebody in Latin America. So we have to have like a 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 valuation. So if somebody's making 50 and they're making 30, they have to do the 100% to 100% workflow. They can't do 50% of the work and pay them, 60% of the salary. So that math was very tricky to understand. Hey, here's what you're going to get. So what my goal is to take my AI and my dashboard and Cloneops and make every employee, including Lean's employees or any other call center, and make those employees 2 or 3 times more productive, because they're already at a disadvantage anyway to be productive because they're in Latin America. Spanish is their first language, English is their second. So like if we can make them more productive, then the Lean clients and any other clients that have any other nearshore call centers are going to make those people better. But what I'm finding out is people are happy with what Lean's doing. They're not trying to look for savings and AI implementation there. We've had so many conversations with people like, let me start here. My biggest cost center is here in the US. Let's start here and see what we could do. Lean's working. I don't want to mess with that. And I'm like, okay, let's start here. But eventually you're going to see that our dashboard is going to be very beneficial for your people at Lean too, because they're mostly doing the lower back office functions and tracking, tracing and whatnot. So, but it's definitely interesting. But my goal would be to help. If you have people at any nearshore, including Lean, and you're trying to scale and hire 10 people, it takes time. You have attrition because now more than ever, like the attrition is high. And when I first started Lean, we had almost zero attrition, and now people never quit. But now Latin America is very, very robust employment, and jobs it's very competitive there now to get people. So you have attrition that has to be replaced. So if I can solve attrition and solve scaling first, and then make them more productive, like elimination of jobs will come down the road. And even if you just eliminate your bottom 10% that you would anyway, because they're not working well, there's plenty there to happen before you just wipe all the jobs out.
And so as you mentioned before we started recording that you're on demo calls every single day, and are, multiple like back to backs. I'm curious as to what is one of the bigger misconceptions about implementing AI into a logistics company.
I think that's going to be that's going to be it's going to be easy. It's never easy. It seems like, oh, just hook up the phone and they call in and it's good. But anything with tech and integrations and API connections, like it's sophisticated and it takes time. And I think that you have to understand that you're making a change in how you do things. And it's like turning a big ship. It doesn't just turn on a dime and you're headed in the right direction. It's a strategy. AI is a strategy companies should be deploying with a timeline. We have a short-term, a mid-term, and a long-term strategy with AI. How are we going to deploy it and make it effective and make it work? And what we're doing is we're finding the easiest low-hanging fruit with the lowest risk points. Like taking AP calls, and responding to AP emails. Most brokers get tons of factor companies calling in, trying to verify information, and tons of calls. Where's my check? So if our AI can answer those emails, and then the people that actually call in could be answered instead of a person having to answer, say your check's going on Friday, AI does. And then with responding to emails that actually need a call, like, hey, I've been emailing you, you're not giving me the thing. We have viewed on what we posted, getting on the phone with them and going through, hey, okay, here's the remittance we said, here's what we show, here's what it is, and be able to work out, why they still have something on their AR and we don't have it on our AP is like doing those things, like takes a burden off the AP where they could focus on getting AP handled and only doing like escalations where there's issues, or an AP now can focus on turning people on to quick pay. Instead of answering calls and sending emails, they can spend more time calling out and saying, hey, let's get you on our quick pay program, because it's a moneymaker for a brokerage.
So outside of, maybe AP and AR, what are some other use cases that you're building right now for logistics companies?
Yeah, the AP and AR are kind of secondary use cases. Our primary use cases right now are carrier sales, are tracking and tracing, and we're building some AI sales agents as well to focus on sales, because I think anything that can increase productivity in sales is going to be well received. And we're also working in other industries too. We're not just in logistics. We're branched off in several other industries. We have, I think, three or four pilots going in completely separate industries. So we're looking. AI is applicable over every industry that you have high call volumes and high email volumes.
I think you mentioned in that conversation on the freight pod that the traditional sales model is or the sales script is dead. And I'm curious as to because we talk a lot of like marketing and sales on this show, and I'm curious as to how you think that sales and marketing will evolve in logistics using AI.
There's so, I remember I've been out of logistics now probably 7, 8 years. And I used to go visit a customer, and while I was in their office, they get 5 calls, like literally one, another call, another call, another call. And so like, sometimes I joke, let me take the call. And it'd be somebody from a big broker, and I'd just bust their chops on why you're never getting the business. We're in Florida. You're going to give me a truck on Mother's Day weekend when I need it, the produce to go to New York City. No. Okay. Then you can't do nothing for me. And they can't, because there's only a few people on the planet that can give you a truck on a Friday last minute going to New York City, delivering on a Sunday on Mother's Day weekend. It's just like that's like almost the most impossible thing to deliver. And so when people are in Florida, that was a big thing we use being in Florida, is like, we take care of you year round, and we did. But so I think sales in general, like when you have such a saturated market, I talked about it with lean, like we had a 5-year runway with lean with no competition, like zero, like from 14 to 19, before guys like Rapido popped up, which was their competitors, and they're good competitors. They're good guys. They have a good product. They're in Mexico, and Lean's in Colombia, and so when there's 10 competitors now, and it's harder to sell. So the more competitors you have, the harder it is to sell. You have to change how you're selling and be different. And I think with AI, I think that some of the AI that you can use as an intro, because the bottom line is, if you have AI, you can do something more cost effective. You can get better pricing and be more efficient, and give more updates. And and just like when tracking came out with MacroPoint and the other tracking devices, customers want to know where their freight is at all times. So I just think sales is using AI in sales. People are intrigued by AI, and what we're working on is basically, creating animations of ourselves as salespeople to basically you can send out, hey, if you want to see what we're about, click on my avatar and watch and have a conversation with me, and see how good our AI is. And then it'd be like me talking right now, and hey, this is pretty interesting. I can use this, and getting them interested in actual AI, not the product you're selling. You know what I'm saying? If you can get them interested in something and then backdoor in what you really want to sell them, then now you're getting their attention, because people don't take calls anymore, right? You go right to voicemail, send me. I get calls, and every now and then I'll answer it. It's a sales, and I believe in karma, so I don't want to be rude and just hang up on them and go, all right, listen, I don't want to be rude. Let me give you my email, and just send me an email and tell me what you're about. And if I'm interested, I'll get back to you. And those emails ultimately go right to spam. I never call back. And so it's like, there's so many ways to get somebody off the phone right now. I remember when I was selling bacteria for septic tanks when I was like 16 years old, and the key was just don't let them hang up. And now people hang up. They had the old phone, they had to get up and go like this. Now they just go. So it's much easier to hang up now. But at the end of the day, I think you have to innovate sales and be creative, right? Marketing is one of the key components, is creativity. And I think our marketing team does an amazing job. They've built our website. I've gotten so many compliments on it, our marketing. And so I think that's a big part of it. And if you just innovate and be different, right? You can't be the same old thing, especially in brokerages. There's, thousands of brokers now all doing similar. They're picking up freight and moving it on with a third party. So how are you different? Why should I use you? And you got to, they use you because they're interested in you. They like you, and they want to give you a chance. So if you can reach them on a conversational level, then you have a better chance to do business with them. And I think that's what sales is about. People do business with people they like and they want to do business with.
I kind of want to double click on the whole avatar, being able to clone yourself, namesake of the company with Cloneops. I have always wanted to have just a replica of myself that, my customers and leads can talk to, maybe not my customers, but my leads can talk to, that can
Sure.
screen them ahead of time. And I don't think that people are aware of how close this technology is, where a year ago I was able to Synthesia, I think is one of the companies out there that you can record 30 seconds of a video just like this, how we're talking, and then you can create new scripts for that virtual avatar of yourself. It's still, that particular tool is a little, there was a little tweaking that they still needed to do. I don't think people realize how close this really is to be able to talk to avatars like what you're mentioning.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And, we have our little interactive robot called Badask, and it's book a demo, ask a question. And it's a cool little robot, and we're launching him soon. I think we're about ready to launch him, and it's going to be similar to what you're going to do with him. You're going to be able to go to our website or on your dashboard. You're going to be able to just open him and talk to him and ask him a question and say, hey, how do I do this? What's this? How do I do that? As long as we fed him the information, the answer, he'll be able to answer it in a conversational manner, versus having prompts. Just, okay, well, here's the only answer you have for this, and you got to go through. It's basically interchangeable conversational AI that isn't just purely scripted. It's it adds to it and adds character to it. So I think that's the start of launching that, and the next phase will be launching our sales reps having basically a similar avatar themselves and on their email or wherever. So when they're on their LinkedIn, hey, if you want to hear what I do, click my AI and have a conversation with me. And people are just going to click it, just say, what? That's weird. Let me click it. And then now you got their attention. Now you got the lead. Now you say, now you don't call and sell anything. You call and say, hey, what'd you think about my AI? What'd you think about that? How'd you like it? Any criticism, anything you like it? And you see that deploying that at your business anyway. And now you get into them asking you what you do versus trying to tell them. Because when you try to tell somebody what you're doing in sales, they're not interested. When you're selling something, they're interested. When they want to buy something, they listen.
So what does, I guess, you mentioned earlier about, you're demoing with different companies, and you're very close to launching. So I'm curious, with the companies that you're working with right now during sort of the testing phase, what does an onboarding plan look like? What if companies are thinking about using these tools and this technology, what should they be getting ready right now to be prepared to have that conversation in a few months or maybe even a year from now?
It's pretty easy. I mean, we have a shared file where you upload a bunch of phone calls if you have recordings or documents, and it could be unstructured data, structured data, doesn't matter. You upload whatever data you have. We run it through an AI model that models the prompts, and we come up with the perfect scripts and prompts. We load them into the dashboard, and you're good to go. You start testing it. You pick your use cases, then you pick some data that's managed. So this is exactly, I know the data I'm putting in there. I know what it is. You test it, you load it up in a CSV. An example, we have we're testing a track and trace. So we export, before we integrate, we export a CSV with 20 trucks that need to be tracked. The AI agent, like an example, we have an API to MacroPoint. MacroPoint gives an exception. It says, hey, we haven't just stopped pinging. Our AI will then trigger a call to that driver and troubleshoot turning MacroPoint back on, or turning their tracking mechanism back on. Or we also have what we call WIA, WIA, where you at, WIA, that if MacroPoint turns off or your traditional tracking doesn't work, or that, it'll send you the WIA, and then when you don't click on it, it calls and says, hey, we just sent you a link because your MacroPoint's off or your traditional tracking device isn't working. We really need to know where you are. Please go click it. I'll hold. And they'll find it, they'll click it and go, okay, I see your locations, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Yep. Are you on time? Are you doing your schedule to get there? Yep. No problem. Okay. And then they'll log all that information back into the CSV. So you have it. And then we integrate. Then as we're doing that, testing, getting it going, as we're working on getting the integrations, depending how easy you can integrate with the API. Some TMSs are a little bit harder to integrate with than others, and because we're just starting, right? So we don't have every TMS integrated across the board, easy and tuned. So we're building our integration plans as we go with TMSs. So. And then it integrates, and then it's working. And then the best part about our dashboard is it's not just working off somewhere that you don't know what it's doing. You can see all of the work being done in our dashboard, voice to text. So you have transcripts, you have logs, you can take the live takeover. If you see you have an active call screen where all the active calls are stacked like an Excel sheet. And then you could click a button and you could extract where you have individual calls. You could pull them over and drop them in an area where you could see the calls themselves happening individually. And then we have the LTO takeover button, live takeover, where if you want to get a call, you click it and jump right in and it takes a call right over. So you don't have to wait for it to be transferred or a Slack message or anything like that. And being able to do that and see what the AI is actually doing to manage it, I think is important, because you don't want your AI off and hallucinating with somebody and they're stuck in this AI, jail that they can't get out of. And, that's what we don't want. So, I think that's some of the things we worked into our dashboard that, that people want. They want to know their AI is not just doing something. I have no idea what they're doing. And they don't want to see it after the call ends. And we also have scoring where we have sentiment scores and tonality scores. So in the dashboard where the calls are laid out like an Excel spreadsheet, like you have all these calls that are active and ongoing, and you can see the ones that have poor tonality, poor sentiment, that maybe the voices are louder than normal. So it judges that. It brings them to the top of the queue that are potentially unsuccessful calls. And those are the ones you could focus on and click on and open up and then go into. And then inherently, the reverse of that is if you're doing sales, you want to see the calls that are successful. You can reverse it, filter it. Now you see the ones that are successful and you can jump in. Because if you have somebody that's interested and they're on the line and they're talking to your AI and they're like curious, you can jump in and say, hey, what do you think about the AI? Why don't we get you on board and get you a real demo, get you an account set up. So like if you're doing sales, so the filters will allow you to do that. So that's some of the cool stuff that we built in, and taken into account. Like, how do we do more than just this voice and back office AI? Like, what are we delivering to customers after we do this? Because that's who's going to win the day.
How do you envision the people setup inside of a brokerage office? Is it everybody is using Cloneops, or maybe it's a specific department dedicated to AI, or maybe it's a lead in each department? How do you sort of envision that from a best case scenario?
Right. So each department has an admin manager that can see everything going on with all the agents, and then individuals have their own login where they have their agent. I envision if you want an employee to be 2 or 3 times more productive, then every single employee should have a Cloneops login. And because you're going to be, like I said in the beginning, you're going to be able to come in eventually, hopefully within, on our roadmap, we're, roughly 12 months away from somebody coming in, turning on their computer, their AI goes to work and does everything they do on a daily basis. So the first day you come in, you'll do it, you'll deploy it. Second day, you'll do it more. By 30 days in, it's going to know everything you do during the day. And it's literally going to do it for you as it goes, as it does it. And then it's going to tell you, hey, you need to handle this, pick up this. You need to handle this, jump in on this. And it's basically going to just be a conductor that tells you the things you need to handle, like air traffic control. Everything's going good, but here's an issue. Let me jump on this issue and handle it. And then you're going to get infinite more work done because you're just going to be handling issues and handling crisis and putting out fires versus emailing a truck to find out if you delivered and being on hold waiting for, try calling somebody on a Monday, try calling a carrier on a Monday morning and find out where your truck is if you can't reach the driver. Good luck. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're on hold forever. Like, your customer's on hold, and then some dispatcher lies to you and you can't prove it. So you still can't get your customer, because everybody knows that just because a dispatcher says it doesn't mean it's real. So you can't take his word for it. Because if you pass that information on to your customer, now you lied. If he lied to you, you lied to your customer. So it's very frustrating, like the workflow. So what will happen now is you'll come in and AI will do all these functions that are normal every day. And then you'll be handling the fires, and you'll be handling the crises, and you'll be handling the interventions and escalations.
What about during some of your calls? I imagine that you've gotten, a little bit of pushback probably. I don't want, bots taking people's jobs, or, bots talking to each other. How do you handle, what are some of those, pushbacks that you get, and then how are you addressing them?
And we're not, and I'm not an advocate of taking jobs. Like, I want to make people more productive. I want to save the company money. If they have 100 people and they would scale to 200 people this year because of growth, I want them to scale to 130 people and deploy AI to right size their business. Every company has to have a right size their business where you have so many people, so much technology. And that's what I want to do. I want to go in and have companies right size their business to the right amount of human people, the right amount of AI and technology, and then just grow all of them like that. Because you're always going to need people just don't want to get rid of the human touch. Like, we're never going to do that, because AI, the one thing it can't do is replicate the human touch. I mean, people are just people, and AI is just programmed. So, people aren't looking to just displace people and get rid of them like that, but they are looking to improve margins, improve EBITDA, improve value, improve productivity. And you're always doing that, right? Like, as I said, I didn't have competition for Lean for 5 years. And all of a sudden, now that Lean's got 20 competitors, everybody wants to know how Lean's going to do it cheaper and better. So we would compare, when we would onboard a customer in 2016, they were paying people $60,000 here. And I think we were charging $18,000 back then. And it'd be like, let's do it. And we could have charged them 25. They still would have said, let's do it. We could charge them 30. They still would have said, let's do it. So at the end of the day, now they're like 30, that's way too much. Your competition's 20. Like, so now we're getting beat backwards instead of not caring. So it's going to happen in the same way. Everybody is looking to deploy something that works, do it better. And now how do you save me money? And how do I use it to save and make more money? And that's what the evolution of almost all this stuff is.
And well, speaking of, competition, there are several different, sort of the AI voice cloning, things like that have entered into the logistics market. How do you differentiate yourself from the rest of the pack?
I mean, there's a few differentiators, right? We have some competitors that have some good experience in logistics and good contacts and have histories of I was probably one of the first ones to come in that had a history of building a great company and using that history to roll into this. And now there's some others that have come in that have built incredible companies and billion-dollar companies, and they're jumping into the space. There's enough business to go around. And we're, our goal isn't just to be in logistics. There's tons of opportunities from shippers and carriers and brokers and forwarders. And so there's a huge amount of space here to conquer, and it can withstand many, 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 many competitors, in my opinion.
Yeah, the wheel started turning as soon as you mentioned forwarders with your earlier comment on all of the different languages that, there's a language barrier right now, but probably not, in the near future using these different tools.
Yeah. I mean, you got things coming from all over the world in transit. And so it's, and at Lean, we opened a forwarder division in like 2016, and we have some of the biggest forwarders, work with Lean and have hundreds of employees. So, we know that everybody's willing to adopt how can we do it better? Because if you're in business and you don't do that, somebody else is going to do it, and they have a competitive edge. Like if your cost goes down in any way, that means you could bring your price down, and now you're competing with price. Everything really comes down to service and price and quality. So if your quality is there and your service is there, then what's your price? And if you're equal in quality, equal in service, but you're higher in price, you're going to lose the business. Like it's just that simple. So you have to continue to evolve, to continue to keep your costs down, be more efficient, be more effective, and you got to have service and quality. And customers are everything. And every business I build, and I listen to the podcast. Finally got to listen to it with Andrew and his dad, and his dad's done incredible things. He's a legend, and I aspire to even be a quarter of the legend he is with what I do. And when you think about, like, his whole thing was we don't give loads back, we take care of the customer. And I've done that in every business. I mean, I've literally been loading trucks on Thanksgiving Day for my customers. I've been with customers in my warehouse loading trucks out on Christmas. Like I've done so many things for my customers. There's nothing I won't do for them. And it used to be like, oh, family comes first. Yeah, it does. But if you take care of your customers, you're automatically taking care of your family. Like I'm doing this to take care of my family. Like, yeah, I'm missing Christmas morning or I'm missing Thanksgiving, but I'm able to provide for them because I have customers. And if I don't have customers, then so it just flows. So I always looked at, I'm working hard. I'm working 60, 80 hours a week. I'm doing anything I have to do for customers because I'm taking care of my family. And that's where we are now. I've been successful and I've had success, and it all comes back to anybody that knows me, any customer that knows me, there's nothing Dave won't do to make sure he gets the job done for you.
Well, I'm curious, as you brought it up, if you were to start a brokerage today, how would you build out a brokerage?
Oh, I would never get into brokerage today. Never, ever, ever. Why would anybody want to do that? Open a brokerage today? It's insane competition. Like it's just insane. How do you get business? Like it's like these people, there's not a shipper on the plane. You have shipper CRM now, and you have like everybody has everybody. They got traffic manager's home number. Like they're getting pounded by 50 people a day wanting their business. How do you go get business? Like you had to do RFPs, and you're doing RFPs. You got to have, imagine to open a brokerage now, you have to have credit, right? So to open a brokerage today, you're not getting millions of dollars of credit from anybody. So even if you win an RFP, you're not getting credit from truckers. Like, and then you got to go do RFPs. You don't have pricing power because you don't have trucks. You know what I'm saying? Like if I was going to do anything, I would open a trucking company today. And because I think trucking is still going to be robust for the next 2 or 3 years, because so many have gone out of business because the last 2 years have been terrible. And I think all the COVID monies ran out or wherever they got this money to survive, because truckers usually went out of business 2 months after they had no money. They didn't last 6, 7, 8 months. So I don't know where they've gotten the money or how they've done it or what subsidies or government waste and fraud went on to give trucking companies all this money to survive. But it's pretty much come to the end and they're going out of business every day in droves. So if I was going to do anything, I would probably open a trucking company, start the trucking company, build that, and then spin off a logistics off of it after I was running, 50 or 100 trucks, because it's just opening pure logistics is, or I would go look for a big shipper to partner with. I go find, there's several people who have opened their brokerage by saying, hey, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll make you 50% partner in my brokerage. Give me your business. You'll get a rebate every year, and go find an owner of a company that shipped millions of dollars of freight a year. And I would say, you want to be my partner? I mean, that's about all you can do, right? Because just pure selling for the business is, I'm a salesman. I like closing. It's like fishing, right? People say, you like fishing? I'm like, take me to fish for bass where I can catch a fish, or fish off a reef where I can catch a fish every 2 minutes. I'm in. I don't want to troll for 5 hours trying to catch a fish and end up with nothing. So same with sales. I want to have high closing rates and success. I don't want to close one. That's why real estate's so tough, right? What they say, like 80% of the realtors don't close a transaction in a year. Like, it's crazy numbers. Like, why would anybody want to be a realtor? Like, it's insane. Like, I want to close it. I need to do a sale a day, or like I'm depressed.
Well, I am does bring up another curious question that I have. Like, is there any logistics business that's been started maybe in the last like 5 years that you've thought, man, I that's a great idea. That's the future. Obviously not a brokerage, but are there any other aspects or maybe silos within logistics that you think still have good business opportunities outside
I
of
mean,
Cloneops?
I think the digital brokerage was pretty cool, and I think that was something like a marketplace, like similar to some of the ones that are out there. I think Convoy going out of business, I think they just over leveraged themselves with funding and didn't do enough. And listen, Flexport just picked up the Convoy model, and I think they're going to do incredible things with that. Like, we were talking, and I made sure they were introduced to Lean, because I think Lean has a ton of small brokerage, with 5 people or less, that could really use that leverage power to buy. So I think they're going to do great things with that Convoy platform. And Flexport, I think it was brilliant of Ryan buying it and getting it at a huge discount and deploying it the way he did. And so, like, that's pretty cool. But I don't really know too many. And I thought I saw somebody launching a LTL reefer brokerage. Was cool. I actually like the Flock Freight model I think they're within 5 years old, right? They built an incredible company in short period. It's $1 billion company. And so I like their model. I think anything that has to do with open source, allowing shippers, brokers, carriers, everybody to go to one place and not have to have all these people in the middle making money for doing stuff, is probably what everybody would like to get to. But it's so fragmented and large in scale of the players. It's not like ketchup where you have Heinz and Hunt's, it's like, or the railways where you have like 5 different railroads and you're stuck. So trucking just has so many options, and so many people are willing to do it for nothing or do it for a loss or loss leader business. So it's just hard to do it in logistics and trucking. But there's some cool things that have come out in the last few years in logistics that are I think are going to be around, and they're not going anywhere.
What do you think holds a lot of logistics companies back when it comes to implementing new technology, AI solutions, things like that? As you're having a lot of these conversations, I imagine that there's some companies that just probably aren't a good fit, and they got to, maybe clean up their own sort of house before they start shopping for a new one. What are you seeing in the market when it comes to technology and AI?
Yeah, the biggest barriers are cost and bandwidth, right? Like, if they have an IT department, they're most likely buried and don't have time to do it. And if you're dealing with most brokerages nowadays, they're under tremendous pressure to improve EBITDA, because it's been such a shit show for the last 2 years on the economy and trucking. So the last thing they want to do is if you're big and go to the board and say, we're going to spend $1 million on AI, and then they're like, you're nuts. You need to make money. Like, so it's always a battle. And what's always been curious to me is, like, in logistics is such a thin margin business. Like I think maybe average EBITDA margins might be 7 to 11%, and other businesses are 25% and 30%. So it's such a small margin. If you like take a brokerage that does 10 million, right? They're lucky if they're making 700,000, and then they got to pay themselves 150, and they got to pay their account. By the time you do all it and you go, look, how much do I have left to invest into my business? And you hire one good salesperson, it's 150,000. So you hire 5 salespeople. You know, in order to get sales grow, you have to have sales and marketing. So when you look at we don't make enough money to have a full-blown marketing team and a sales team and a sales manager and a CRO. Like it's just, there's not enough meat on the bone, like to really scale a business the right way. So you have to just lose a shit ton of money for 2 years. And that's been the model. That's been the model, right? In the last 7, 8, 9 years, everybody's jumped in, they've lost millions of dollars until they got market share, and then they scale it back and make it profitable. And you know, that's what a lot of the bigger ones did in the last 5 years. So all the big brokers you have out there kind of followed that model, but most brokers are like opening up with, you know, on a shoestring budget and you know, doing it themselves. And I remember when I opened my brokerage, I funded my brokerage was funded with payables. I owe people money and I strung them out 40 days, and that's how I, you know, because people paid me in 38, and that's how I grew my brokerage. And everybody would say, oh, you're good, you know, you're why, you know, how do you grow so fast? And I'm like, because I was able to, you know, my payables grow fast. I'm only as good as my payables. Like that's my line of credit, because, you know, you don't open up and get a line of credit from a brokerage, you know, you factor, but you also have you have people like TriumphPay now that help brokerages pay and get part of that quick pay. That platform's amazing. And some of the other ones, the factor companies out there, like OTR has a payment processing for brokers now too. And so adopting that model has also been helpful for brokers to grow as well, because AR funding is, like, I think the biggest hurdle in brokerages is it's very difficult to get your AR funded. And if you do, it's just your margin, it's not your whole. But back when I started brokerage, I got to use my whole payables to fund, and people were more flexible back then. You know, if you paid, I did a lot of LTL, and the LTL carriers gave you 60, 90 days to pay before they screamed bloody murder. So they didn't, you know, they were used to it. So like I was able to grow and build because I was just able to manage my payables.
And so, yeah, obviously, with your wealth of knowledge and history and work ethic inside of logistics, I'm curious as to, you know, the bootstrapped founders that are getting started this year or maybe next month. What advice would you give to them on building in sort of this down market that we're experiencing?
Wow. Yeah. Advice is tough. You know, because so many different things work for different people, right? Like, you know, people are their personality and their character, and they do things the way they do it. I would just say, like, you know, understand your financial model very well, because I've seen so many people come build things that have no financial scalability. Like, you know, even if you got to there, how much money are you going to make? Well, I don't know. Well, if you don't know that, that's like the gasoline that goes in the car to get you on the road to follow the map. Like you need to understand your financial future and where you're going to go with it, and how much it's going to cost, and how much you're going to making when you get there. And that was a cool thing I did about Lean. When I launched Lean and launched it with Robert Cadena, I had my model, and I had somebody from the call center industry send it to me in Excel. So all I had to do was plug in 1 seat, 10 seat, 100 seats, 1,000 seats, 10,000 seats, and it gave an enterprise value. And I thought it was wrong, because I plugged in 100 seats and 1,000 seats, and when I plugged in 10,000 seats, it had over $1 billion of enterprise value. I'm like, what? I could do 10,000 seats. Like, it might take me 5 years, but like if I get a customer today and a customer tomorrow, 5 seats, 10 seats, 50 seats, 100 seats, 200 seats, 500 seats, and everybody's growing 10%. I did the math. I'm like, I think I can get there in 3 to 5 years. And it was just incredible. And like, that was the driver. Like, that was what I believed in that got us to 10,000 seats and $1 billion value. Like, it's that. So if you don't have that, and that's what I did similar here at Cloneops. I did each talking minute, each customer, each user. And I feel like I can build another $1 billion company, because I think I can have 1,000 active users with 1 billion talking minutes. And if I do that, I built a $1 billion company. And like that, if you don't have that vision and that, like, I think that for me, that was a start. Like I said, everybody's different, and everybody, you know, is going to have something different that they look at based on their personality and drive and energy. And people say I got a lot of energy, but I don't know. I drink too much Celsius or Red Bull, but But at the end of the day, I think that is the single most important, is the vision of where you're going to be. And I think vision is like critical for everything I've ever believed in and really truly believed, not just fake believed. If I've really believed it, it's come true for me. And so I've told everybody, just find that, make sure you can believe in it, and then believe in it. Like, and if you put it on paper and you see it and it makes sense, then you believe in it. So like, and
So
so
having
that's
the
the drive.
vision and the
Yeah.
financial acumen to see the vision come to life. All right,
Yeah.
last, we got a few more minutes left here. Anything that you feel is important to mention about Cloneops that we haven't already talked about?
Oh man, my brain's so fried. I haven't worked this hard since dispatching trucks. Listen, I just think we built a great team. I think we're up to 18 or 19 people now. We're adding some great industry people that, you know, are young and energetic and enthusiastic about what we're doing. And there's a lot of other great companies out there too. So like this, companies should do their diligence, look at everybody, and then pick the right company that's the best fit for you in every way. And we just like to get in there and have a spot to compete for that. And we're going to lose a lot of business. We're going to win a lot of business. And the people that are getting into the business, I know them well and like them. They're very good friends of mine. And some of us have done things together, and I'm rooting for them too. And I'm just happy there's so much business out there and so much room to grow and do, and we're all going to prosper and succeed. And if we could deliver half the vision we all have of what we could do in logistics with AI, it's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, I think that's really well said, because there's a lot of, sort of doom and gloom about the industry and just about the world in general. But there's to me, it's you're missing the forest for the trees, because there's opportunities everywhere. And if you have the vision and the financial acumen, as you just mentioned, then you can find those opportunity spots and really be able to build something great in what this new information era that we find ourselves in. So David, really appreciate your time here. I'll be sure to link to your, LinkedIn, Cloneops, all that good stuff in the show notes. Any last parting words for the audience?
No, listen, I think everybody should have a good outlook on the future. I think things are good, and we're going to adapt to whatever comes our way, like we've been doing for 1,000 years, and everybody's going to be fine. And AI is not going to change much other than the way we think about things and do things. So and I'm happy to be a part of it. So
Absolutely, David. Thank you so much.
all right, thanks.
That's our signal.
Appreciate
right there.
it.